Hey friends in Christ, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, in a new year and in sort of a new season of life for all of us, right? Don't New Year's always bring that for each of us. 2022 was a year of a lot of change for me. I went from working in full-time ministry, which I had done for about the last 3 or 4 years, into working in a secular work environment, which has been a great blessing to work in the business world. But I do find myself so often missing talking about Jesus Christ and about my faith in Him. It's my hope in this new year to take some time to try to remember, hopefully with you and with anyone who wants to watch, the faith, remember the gospel, and remember what it was that brought me into Christianity together, right? I find that making videos, right, and talking about things it's pretty cringe, right? It's pretty terrible to look at yourself in a video or to listen to your own voice, and a lot of times it can seem pretty narcissistic or pretty self-centered at best. But I still find that there's a lot of worth in sharing, from my own experience, and hopefully throughout this year, I'm sharing with other people and their experiences the stories of God's providence and how He has worked in my life and how He's worked in the lives of those who I know. So I'm really hoping that through this year, I can try to tell that story more, and that I can try to tell other people's stories as well. One of the things that I know is that I am so forgetful every day of the story of God's faithfulness in my life. So forgetful. I've heard it said that one of the main reasons why Jesus never sinned, right? There are a number of them, but one of the main ones was that He never lost sight of His identity and who He was in relation to God, right? Now, Jesus being God's Son, that's a pretty close relationship, but each and every one of us, as professed Christians, also share in that sonship and daughterhood with Jesus Christ and with God the Father. And so Jesus never lost sight of who He was. He never forgot His identity. And that was how He stayed on that straight and narrow path of walking with God while He was truly human and still truly God. Well, now myself, I know that I am very truly human in the sense that I mess up, right? I walk away from God often, I fall, and I lose sight of who I am. And so I find that so often, if I don't go back and retrace the steps that I've taken, the steps in faith, the steps that I have walked as a believer, that I forget them. And that I go back in time to places where I have already been, right? Places of unbelief, places of doubt, places of basically just being kind of stupid, right? Of going back and falling into old sins, old habits. And so it's my hope that through this journey of, making some videos, making some content, maybe some interviews to come down the line, some sharing of stories from the past, that God will use this to maybe minister to you, right? To evangelize you or to help you to think about some questions or otherwise that you haven't as of yet, but also to help myself, right? To remember those places where God has taken me, those places where I have been, and maybe the Lord will be able to speak to you through that as we listen to our lives together. I'm so convinced, if you've read anything that I've written before, or if this is your first time engaging with me, you'll hear from me a lot, that it is God's preferred method of reaching out to us is through the ordinary. And, I was just at Mass yesterday, and the priest was talking about this, how the Lord does extraordinary things through the ordinary means, right? That's how God chooses to communicate Himself to us. If you've listened to any of the other videos on my channel, you've heard some of me talk about in the last few years about how I've struggled and wrestled with questions, the main questions that have dogged me sort of along my path of trying to believe in Christ and trying to walk with Him, right? Primarily, and those being the problem of evil, right? Theodicy, how do we reconcile the fact that there is evil and hardship and suffering in a world that was created by a good God who loves us. That's always been, and I think should be for all of us, sort of the primary question, the primary concern that we have when we look at Christ in the face. And so I would encourage you to listen to that video, but I hope to talk about it more. This answer that God gave me in the cross, and how the cross of Jesus Christ has been the most formative, most challenging, changing event in human history and also in my life. And how that cross of Christ has become realized in my life as an interpretive lens through which I can view the suffering of the world, the suffering of human history, but maybe not most importantly, but maybe most profoundly in my own life, how it helps me to interpret and to reconcile the pain and hardship that I've experienced in my own life. And maybe you can, in turn, think about that in your own life. I'd like to talk about that more because it's such a key aspect of my life. And I'd also like to talk about more of what I've learned on this journey and more of what other people have learned along their journeys as well. If you know anything about me, again, maybe you don't. I don't really know how many people will actually listen to these. Some of you, I'm sure, will maybe see this through Facebook or other means and will hear me out, which I appreciate. And some of you maybe clicked on a random YouTube link. And that's pretty awesome, the fact that God gives us this technology to be able to stay in touch with each other. So what you can know about me is that I was born and raised a Baptist. I'm born and raised a Protestant Christian, but mostly grew up with a nominal faith. A nominal faith that was still hungry and desired to understand, but was very confined to my head, very confined to reason, to what I could understand, even as a 12, 13, 14-year-old young guy. And that faith was, in the end, pretty superficial for me. It didn't get me very far. And when a lot of life's hardships came along with me, parents getting divorced, life at school being difficult, and just a lot of anguish and anger at God, I walked away from the faith almost entirely, at least intellectually, right? And I was surrounded by atheists and men and women of goodwill, but people who did not believe in God. And I walked away from the faith, and I was, probably an avowed atheist for 5 or 6 years. And even though that was only during sort of rebellious teenage years, there was definitely plenty of time for me to stray from the faith and to make big mistakes. And also to think that I had this moral superiority, this moral high ground that was really grounding me, until it was tested in some really challenging ways and led me to a place where I felt like I had nothing, where I felt like I had sort of hit rock bottom. And in the long run, God brought me back to himself through the witness of good friends, through walking into prayer and church and places that I did not think I would find myself. And places, frankly, where when I started them, I didn't believe in them, right? Walking into prayer, walking into church before I had even an inkling that they were going to help me or that they were going to work. But still walking into them and experientially coming to find that there was real truth there. Experientially coming into what I believe now was contact with reality. Contact with reality. So much of our life, I think, is sort of veiled, is tainted by the screen, right? By things that are not real, by things that are sort of a mirror darkly of what actual human contact and contact with reality really is. And so this contact with reality for me, even before I understood or believed, brought me to a place where, say, as I prayed, not knowing if there was anyone listening, then when my prayers started to be answered in really miraculous ways, I had this sense that there was something going on that was beyond me. And as sort of the pieces fell into place for me and the coincidences stacked themselves up in my life, I began to really ask questions about who God was, how he was speaking to me, how he was ministering to me in my life. Again, maybe where you're at in your journey, you are a Christian, a Catholic as I've become. I'm now a Roman Catholic, which was not the terminus that I thought I would have in my journey, but it was where God brought me. Maybe you are a Catholic or a Christian who is set in their faith and you're looking to walk with someone and to listen and think alongside me. I would love that. I would also love if you're someone who has had the same questions that I've had in the past and you want to wrestle with them with me, because on this journey of faith, this journey of truth that we are on, we have to continue, I think, to wrestle with and reconcile these difficult realities of human life that we live in, right? Again, maybe the problem of evil, maybe the problem of God not being present and tangible in our life. There are a lot of questions, right, that we can wrestle with. And I want to do that hard work with you. And I hope to share some of my thoughts, my perspective, along with others, with you. So that journey, right, and this sort of starting point that we're going to take, and hopefully me being a little bit more consistent and trying to wrap our heads around the greater issues of Christianity, and then more specifically, what I am so overjoyed at, the greater issues of Catholicism. I would really like to do that with you. And so as we kind of go off and have a starting point in this year, it's not January 1st. It would have been kind of fun to put it out on New Year's, right? But January 2nd, the first week of the year, maybe that will do, is that you will help me in charting a course forward, right? What are the questions that you have? Drop them down in the comments below. What are the hard things that you wrestle with that maybe we can talk about and think about together? And what are the places where you think that we should go? And I would hope to be a humble person accompanying you on that, talking about it, thinking about it. I'm trying to offer the perspective that I have. For me, where I'm at in my life now, as I said, is I'm working, in business. But over the years, I've been privileged to work since coming to a knowledge and belief in Jesus Christ, really an encounter with Jesus Christ. Have been on the campus, on college campuses at my alma mater. I'm walking for about a year and a half with college students, which is a great joy for me and brought me so many lessons in ministry. Working in a number of different parish contexts, both at the local church level and also in large cathedrals and places within an Anglican context. Serving in seminary and studying theology and learning really about the ancient wealth of the Christian faith. And then finally being brought into what I believe is the fullness of truth in the Catholic Church, and then working as a missionary in New York City, walking alongside and accompanying in solidarity the poor and those who were in need in New York City and the Bronx, and walking alongside brother missionaries who taught me so much by their fellowship. And then finally coming to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I'm based today, and working as youth minister for a year at a local church, a Catholic church, and getting to accompany and lead young people, both in ministry and in the sacrament of confirmation, along with teaching RCIA. So I have a fair bit of experience, fielding the tough questions. I'm no expert by any means, but I love to talk about and think about the faith. And so I hope that as my day job now these days is not getting to be an expression of ministry, that this will be a place where I can continue to engage and to wrestle with this in a way that is, I'm sure, going to be a bit self-conscious, and that is going to be sometimes too serious, maybe sometimes too lighthearted, but I hope that we can do that together, that we can kind of go on a journey of exploration together of the faith. So I say this without a lot of planning, but that is my hope for this channel as we move forward. So again, I just want to encourage you to drop any questions or topics that you would hope for me to cover in this coming year into the comments section, and I would be glad to expound on them as the weeks go on. I have some thoughts for where we can go, some written pieces from the past that can kind of be a baseline, a jumping off point. And some friends that I'm hoping along the way to potentially be able to some friends that I'm hoping to be able to reach out to and have some discussions, interviews, and everything with. And again, as you go, as I go into trying to make some more content, this really is one of those places where, it's a little silly. It's a little cringe. It's a little awkward, right, to do this. But I think it's worth it to lean into the cringe, lean into the awkward, to embrace it for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of being able to hopefully shed some light. Again, always keeping in mind that this is ideally to be a remembering of God's faithfulness, a remembering of what God has done for me in my life, and to share that with you, and to hopefully hear from others how God has been faithful to them, and to try to understand more really the reality that God has placed us in this world, and truth which is intelligible to us as Christians and as believers. So, friends, it is a new year. It's a new season of life for each of us, and hopefully it is a launching off point for some new content for me on this channel. Hopefully on a weekly basis, but definitely at least monthly, where we can explicate and dig into Christianity at large, and just the great gift that Jesus Christ is to all of us. And if you agree with me, I hope that this will give you great joy in that. And if you disagree with me in that, I hope that you will still come along for the ride, that you will still tag along, because truth is not afraid of inquiry, and because truth is ultimately what all of us must seek and must continually reconcile and remember ourselves. If it is true, right? If it is true, then we should seek it and we should desire it. And I do really believe that the truth of the gospel is intelligible. It is within our grasp if we continue and if we seek to grasp it. God has answered so many of my prayers, and I pray that He will answer prayers for you through this process. And then I can just kind of be humbly along for the ride. That would be fun. It will be fun if we can have some good times together, and that we can maybe laugh, pray, and go along on this ride on 2023 together. So, friends, God bless you. I'm looking forward to creating more content along the way, and I just ask that you would, feel free to help me out along the way, right? And as any good YouTuber would say, to smash the like button and to hit the subscribe button and to come along on the ride with me. So, friends, from a humble husband, from a father who's a little bit sleep deprived, right? I have a 7-week-old that is, accompanying me as well, right? Keeping me and my wife up at night. Maybe we can put our heads together and we can see more clearly God and His face as He has revealed it to each of us. So, until next time, which will hopefully be soon, let's talk again. And we'll see what God has in store for us through this year and through the vessel of a silly YouTube channel. That would be great. So, hey, God bless you guys, and talk soon.